Okay. Israel Robledo.
Hi Israel. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, firstly, please?
Yes, I was born in Midland, Texas, here in the United States. I pretty much stayed here in Midland my whole life, except for when I went off to college. Um, got my degree and moved back home. And I was working in finance for a few years, and then decided to go into teaching. So for the past 23 years, I've been a school teacher working with elementary age students. I'm married, have three girls and three grandchildren, and they're my life actually. So
Oh.
so that's who I am as a person.
I
Um,
always like to ask about the person first before the Parkinson's because I think that's the order it should come in. So do
yes.
you want to tell me about your Parkinson's diagnosis, please, if that's okay?
Yes, I was diagnosed when I was 37. Excuse me. I was diagnosed when I was 42. My symptoms started when I was 37.
Yeah.
So yeah, they sometimes get
Yeah. It's a lot of dates.
uh, yes, the dates start running together. But yeah, I've always said that if I were a hypochondriac, I could have told you that I had Parkinson's because I had the symptoms and they would come and go. I had the tremor in the pinky, the most common for most of us, and then I started having balance issues. I'd get up in the morning and walk down the hall to get to the bathroom and literally hit the walls as I was going down, and then I would have rigidity on the left side, um, uh, very very painful rigidity, and then I found. Through the years, my family would always say, "You walk like an old man. You're always so slow in what you do." It was a very common thing. So I wasn't worried about anything until a certain point in time. All the symptoms came back together, and they showed up at the same time. And I thought I had a stroke. The left side of my body had turned inward, rigidity, literally dragging my foot. And the only thing that would have been different from a stroke is that my voice wasn't affected. And that's when I finally decided to go to the doctor. And I was diagnosed within a week of going to see my neurologist.
How did they
And an
diagnose you?
interesting
Did they
thing,
do tests or?
it the I asked him once why I was so lucky to have that happen, and he says many times people come to me and tell me that they want me to tell them what's wrong with them,
Mm.
rather than, he said, you were able to say, this is what I've been bothered with for so long, and this is what I'm dealing with at this point. And he said that's what allowed me to take what you were telling me, and with diagnosis and ruling out other things, he said that was the reason we did it so quickly. He says, "Well, it's a struggle for many people to express what they're dealing with." So
Mm.
for me, it was very quick after 5 years.
Yeah, I was about to say. It's difficult. It's always the difficult question as well when people say when were you diagnosed, and when people often ask the question wrongly, they'll say when did you get Parkinson's, or when did you start having Parkinson's, and it's always a very difficult one. You feel like you're schooling people when you tell them that actually, well, I was diagnosed on this date, but actually I probably had it for X amount of years previously. I always feel like I'm kind of being very
Right.
mean to people back, but it's difficult to
Well,
answer.
and you're absolutely right, because what I've often said is the de novo patient, within clinical trials, I've always had an issue with that because, doctors say, well, there's no other way of saying that you're newly diagnosed. But like you just said, when did you experience the first symptoms of
Mm.
Parkinson's? That, for me, it was 5 years. I've had friends who had it 10 years, some 20 years. So
Yeah.
de novo is it's a relative term.
I find it difficult to pinpoint when my symptoms started as well, because I think I had a lot of non-motor before I
Hmm.
probably had motor symptoms. So if I look back at things that have changed since I started taking the medication, there's certain things that have changed that
Uh,
have been non-motor that definitely have been helped by the medication that probably were years before. So it's a bit of an interesting one, I think.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, you don't realize what you've gone through until they stop happening, or they stop as a result of the medication, and you're like, wow, this is
Mm.
this is kind of neat. to have
Someone
happen.
told me the other day, apparently your physical symptoms don't actually start showing until you've lost, is it like 70% of your dopamine or something? There's some sort of stat like that.
Yes, that's what I've heard as well. Which is scary.
It is scary, yeah. But also quite interesting that you can carry on fairly sort of unhindered for, years with like dopamine lacking. It's quite clever chemical.
Yeah, right.
So you're involved in a lot of things. I see a lot of things fling up on Facebook, and you've met one of my heroes, actually, I think, haven't you? You've met Michael J. Fox, which makes me very jealous of you.
I've been very, very blessed to have some opportunities. Met him twice. Had a chance to actually sit on a panel discussion that he had come up with, the idea to actually have people with Parkinson's talk about what they've dealt with,
Right.
how it affects each of us differently. The show was aired nationally here in the United States. The sad thing is that we had spent over an hour with him, and it was a neat experience because people sometimes think, well, it's Michael and then others, but the moderator would ask questions of us specifically, and then others, including Michael, would say, "Yeah, that's what I experienced," or mine was a bit different. It was a wonderful experience, and he is as nice and as cordial and as accommodating as you.
I'm so glad to hear that. I
Yes,
love him a
yes.
little bit.
I'm in awe of him. And I told him when we were done, and throughout, one of the questions was, what keeps you guys going? And I said, Michael could have taken his diagnosis, gone home, and done nothing, and just gotten the best care possible and left everything.
No one would have blamed him.
No one would have blamed him. And I said, for him to actually lead us to the point where we're $750 million US dollars have already been raised and are put into fundraising. I mean, research that never would have happened. So from one person, and he is. I've been very, very blessed to have met him, and like I said, he is one of a kind and a very, very kind gentleman.
I'm so glad to hear that. I always worry that people that you idolise might be like not how you expect them to be.
Yeah.
What are you proudest of, sort of achievement-wise, with that you've achieved since you've been diagnosed? Is there anything you've sort of worked on, or anything you've been involved in that you feel proudest of?
My proudest moment has been actually with the World Parkinson Congress. I've got 3 proud moments that I share. Back in Montreal, the 3rd World Parkinson Congress, I was co-chair with Boss Bloom, Serge Vedrelsky, and Oscar Grishanik, along with Dr. Fawn, to co-chair the program committee.
Oh, wow.
I was the only non-scientist to have that opportunity. And that was, although it was a monumental task, the respect and the consideration that I received from those gentlemen, especially Dr. Fawn, from the beginning saying we have to have the voice of the patient in all that we're doing with this Congress, and seeking input and seeking support, and it was, to me, one of the most proud moments of my advocacy career. And to be honest with you, no one else will ever have that opportunity, because Dr. Fawn has retired from the WPC. So forevermore, I'm going to be the only non-scientist who has actually co-chaired the program committee. Wow. So that's one of those that's way up there for me as an advocate. And the other one is my involvement with the Cure Parkinson Trust, and my engaged with the Parkinson's movement and the true voice of the patient as we move internationally to push research forward. It's what bothers me often is people want something to happen, yet they're not willing to step forward. And I think more and more people are starting to do that, because there are people such as yourself and others who, we don't have to be out in the public eye. We could stay at home, yet we are willing to share our story and do our part to help move things forward. And the third one is the Fox Foundation. Being a part of the patient council, that's something that people don't apply for. You're actually invited as. When I was invited, I said, "What do you expect from me?" And they said, "Your voice. Your voice is what we're seeking because that's what has been powerful in your advocacy." So, so those three things I share that I'm very proud of.
You should be. It's amazing. You do some incredible stuff. So, one of which is your book, which you gave me a copy of and I read, and it's very beautiful. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Which is called The Day I Found Out Why. Why was it given that title? I remember you explaining it at World Parkinson's Congress.
Yes, the title is based on Mark Twain's quote, where he said, "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why." And in my case, I remember when I was diagnosed, I went through a dark, deep depression. I was suicidal for about 9 months. And it was a Sunday morning listening to music on an iPod, and I usually iron Sunday mornings, and that's when I solve the world's problems, in my own mind. But that day, literally, I was listening to a song that was titled "I Send You Out on a Mission of Love," and I kept thinking, this is what I'm dealing with. I should not focus on me because I've got family, I've got a job, I've got insurance, I've got support from everybody whom I would want support from. But there are many more people out there who don't have this help that they need, support-wise. And that's when I had always liked that quote, and I thought that's a very appropriate name for a book, because for me that was basically it led up to me finding out the purpose for my life. Which you never want a Parkinson's diagnosis, but if you have to have it, do some good with it. So I had always journaled, since my diagnosis throughout the years, so I was able to take some of those issues that I had dealt with and how I came to my diagnosis, and then go back to the first most important day and talk a little bit about my upbringing. So that's where the book title comes from.
And it was really great at the World Parkinson's Congress, which is where I met you for the first time in Portland, which was lovely. It was really great to kind of hear you read from that. So there was the little book nook, wasn't there? The little corner, and it was lovely to hear you read. So it's a great.
Thank you. That was a neat experience because there's even to this day there are certain parts of the book that I'll go back and read, or I've shared with other groups. And some are very difficult to get through because it brings back a lot of emotion. And I've often said that the book is raw with emotion. Very, very little editing was done to it because it was meant to show exactly what I've been dealing with. And but at the same time, having the ability to come out on the other side and being able to help others along the way.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. When I read back over my book, there's bits that I really struggle with. It's kind of, and similarly, I sort of, when it was edited, I was like, don't cut out any of the sort of emotion or the, there's lots of bits in there that are quite, they're not the best written, but they kind of sum up the moment.
Absolutely. Yes, I've often shared it. My father-in-law, when he first read it, he says, "I hear you in that story in your book." He said, "So don't." He says, "Don't change it. Don't change it."
The book has a voice, I think.
Yes, and through the last couple of years, people have said, reading it has made me realize that I'm not alone on this journey, and that it's something that I can overcome some of the things that I've dealt with, and so it's nice to hear people respond in that way. So
that's lovely.
Yes.
So leading on from that, really, what advice would you give to someone who's newly diagnosed? Is there anything you've learnt over your time with the condition, or that anyone's told you that you think you'd love to pass on?
I think the most important advice that I would give is to let people know that it does take time to come to terms with the diagnosis. Not saying that you accept what you're, because I quibble sometimes with that acceptance, Kubler-Ross's acceptance, because I say I don't truly accept that I have this disease process. It's changing my body, but in my mind, I'm able to come to terms with what I've dealt with, but also moved forward and tried to do good for others. A word that always comes to mind is to be of service to others, and I try to always keep that in the back of my mind. If I do anything, it's for all of us. And that's something that throughout my years of advocacy, I've always said, it's not for me, it's for all of us. And it makes a difference, because when your heart is in the right place, the message comes out the way it's intended to. But but in essence, a diagnosis is not the end of the world. It's actually the beginning of the new world that we may not want, but we can definitely live well with it. It's something that it's a gift that keeps on taking. Yet, if you use it wisely, you can give a lot of yourself to others.